Chapter 117, Big Fish Falls. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Where did the thunderbolt came from? The killer was shocked and decided to retreat at once. Boom. After knocking down the wall, Zhang Yuochen thrust his flash-shining sword to the killer's globula at high speed. However, the killer in black was more nimble than Zhang Yuochen's sword and he drew back after hearing the sound of wind. Clash. Zhang Yuochen waved his arm and cut a piece of black lapel from the killer's neck. That killer touched his neck, discovering his head was still attached. He sighed with relief. You indeed have some superiorities and deserve the first one. Can you tell me what's going on with that thunderbolt? Zhang Yuochen knew the killer was putting him off and waiting for another faraway slayer killing him. Thus he continued his sword and said, "Go ask the King of Hell." Humphrey, you are just a freshman in the advanced stage of the Black Realm. You attempt to kill a stronger person in the completion of the Black Realm? You are too arrogant. A cold glare emerged in the killer's eyes and he took out a very thin sword from one sleeve. Fish intestines sword hidden in sleeve. Clash. With glittering flashlights, the sword breath like a white rainbow stabbed to Zhang Yuochen's heart. His speed was inconceivable fast at the speed of 50 meters per second. In a flash, his sword stabbed towards Zhang Yuochen's heart. Just when he thought he would surely be able to kill Zhang Yuochen, suddenly, the space in front of Zhang Yuochen distorted. The sword unexpectedly changed its direction, stabbing through Zhang Yuochen's one armpit. How could this be? No, that killer could be no more frightened. For two martial arts masters who were fighting with each other, a little mistake meant a dead end to each of them. PFFF. Zhang Yuochen pierced his sword to the ankles of that killer, having his legs tendons picked off. Then, Zhang Yuochen twisted his body, coming behind the killer and pointed to the sacred meridian of the killer's spine with his two fingers together. Slap. His sacred meridian was broken and cultivation was scrapped. The killer in black fell to the ground. Zhang Yuochen had no time to look at the appearance of that killer in black. Carrying the flash-shining sword and jumping down the attic, he went to another killer by leaps who was 40 meters away. That killer, hiding behind the leaves of a giant pine tree, was shocked when she seeing Zhang Yuochen rushing to her with the sword. How did he find out where I was hiding? This female killer drew out two green long poison arrows from her back, while riding them on the bowstring, and then she pulled the black longbow like a full moon. She was very confident of her archery. Even a completion warrior of the Black Realm could not survive within 40 meters. Mew. At this moment, she heard a voice of meow behind her. A black shadow quickly flashed through in front of her eyes. That black shadow stretched out a sharp paw and struck on her one wrist. PFFF. The right hand of her was cut off by the paw and fell down from the tree. Crimson blood gushed from her wrist and dyed her black robe to red. A sharp pain came from her wrist so that she made a muffled voice. Boom. Below her, Zhang Yuochen chopped the giant pine tree trunk off, making the tree crash down. Falling heavily on the ground from an over 20-meter high tree, the female killer was just trying to escape while she found a sword tip with a cold light pointing to her head. Still want to run away? Zhang Yuochen picked out the veil from the female killer's face with his sword, a quite gorgeous face exposed. It's you. Zhang Yuochen was amazed slightly. This female killer was Hulian, the newborn first of Western Campus 6 years ago. Hulian bit her teeth tightly, revealing a hint of sneer and looked at Blackie who was not far away, then said unwillingly, I did not expect you have raised a strong savage beast. We are miscalculated. You called who is a savage beast? Your ancestors had not yet been born when I was shocking the world, Blackie said unpleasantly. Zhang Yuochen asked, tell me, in Western Campus who else are Hades department killers? Zhang Yuochen, you looked down on me. Hulian showed a strange smile. Boom. A 5-meter diameter blood wave took shape under Hulian's feet, emitting glaring blood lights, which shook Zhang Yuochen and Blackie away together. Go to hell. Drawing a thin sword from her one sleeve, Hulian stabbed it to the globula of Zhang Yuochen as quick as a flash. It was so fast, Zhang Yuochen hardly saw her techniques clearly. Damn, I looked down upon her. Hulian was the newborn first 6 years ago, and her cultivation was definitely very profound. Even if she was not a warrior of division profound, she could not be much weaker than them. Zhang Yuochen quickly ran the genuine qi in his body and was ready to exert the power of space warps again. Puffed. A sound of blade piercing into flesh went off loudly. Hu Lian's whole body shook and fell to the ground after she suddenly stopped her paces, staring at Zhang Yuochen, who was in front of her. Standing behind Hu Lian, Huang Yanqun withdrew her bloody sword and hummed coldly. The killers of Hades Department are increasingly rampant. They even dare to kill people in Dragon Martial Temple. Zhang Yuochen looked toward Hu Lian, who was lying on the ground. Huang Yanqun's sword was very precise. She pierced the heart of Hu Lian accurately from the back. Staring at Huang Yanqun, Zhang Yuochen asked, "Why did you kill her?" Huang Yanqun frowned slightly and said very unhappily, "If I hadn't killed her, you could have been killed by her." "Could you dodge her sword techniques just now?" Zhang Yuochen said. "You just could break down her sacred meridian or destroy her cultivation. Why you had to kill her?" "Maybe we could get some information from her if she were still alive." Huang Yanqun laughed. "You are too naive. I can't believe you intended to ask something out from the killers of Hades Department." Clash. Huang Yanqun withdrew her sword and turned away. Staring at the back of Huang Yanqun, Zhang Yuochen was very puzzled, whether she is a killer of Hades Department or not. "What are you thinking about?" Juan Muxingling stood next to Zhang Yuochen and looked at the direction where Zhang Yuochen was staring at Huang Yanqun's exquisite back shadow, then asked in surprise, "Aren't you doubting that Sister Chen is another killer from the Hades Department?" Zhang Yuochen shook his head and said, "I just feel it was too coincidental." "Yes, it is." Juan Muxingling nodded and said, "But you don't need to doubt her because she absolutely can't be a killer of Hades Department." "Why?" Zhang Yuochen asked. "First of all, killers of Hades Department mainly committed crimes in Western 9 prefectures and Sister Chen is not from there. Secondly, killers are mainly for wealth to kill people and Sister Chen neither lacks money nor practice resources." "By the way, do you know Sister Chen has another identity?" said Juan Muxingling. "What identity?" Zhang Yuochen asked. "She is the favorite daughter of Cayenne's Yui Commandery Prince." "You should have heard of Cayenne's Yui Commandery, do you?" said Juan Muxingling. Zhang Yuochen nodded and said, "Yes, I do. But I really didn't expect that she has such a distinguished identity. As a superior class commandery, Cayenne's Yui Commandery doesn't belong to the Western 9 prefectures but nearby. The whole territories of Western 9 prefectures are less 1/4 than that of Cayenne's Yui Commandery. The east of Yunwu Commandery was bordered by the Cayenne's Yui Commandery, and in a sense, Yunwu Commandery was even attached to Cayenne's Yui Commandery. Every year Yunwu Commandery sent a large number of tributes to Cayenne's Yui Commandery in order to obtain asylum of it, otherwise, the Yunwu Commandery would have been annexed by Square Commandery. Since Huang Yanqun was the daughter of Cayenne's Yui Commandery Prince, then there was no possibility that she was a killer of Hades Department. Senior Sister Apprentice Huang has a hot-tempered, not like a princess at all. Zhang Yuochen shook his head. Sister Chen's character is straight and she doesn't know how to disguise. If you contact her for a long time, you will find that she is actually a very good girl. Juan Muxingling laughed. Zhang Yuochen went back to Black Number 1 to check the killer who was destroyed cultivation by him. When he returned he found that killer had been murdered. He died from a strong palm which shattered his heart. Zhang Yuochen touched the killer's heart and it had been torn apart. Juan Muxingling chased up and saw it. How could this be? We were in the courtyard where was only 30 meters away from the attic. Who did this without a trace? Zhang Yuochen's face fell and said, at least the one who killed him has cultivation reached the completion of the earth realm, even the myth of martial arts of the heaven realm. Juan Muxingling was surprised and said, there is a terrible killer lurking in Western Campus. We shall tell the Lord. No need. The big fish has been caught. The Lord of Western Campus bore his hands and walked in from outside with a faint smile on his face. Who? Asked Zhang Yuochen. Looking toward a rockery in the distance, the Lord of the Western Campus said, why do you hide yourself when you already have come, Elder Situ?